Crunch her, get it over with, bro. Crunch her, get it over with, Aaliyah.
She slaps Bryanna Barozzini in the face. Your Honor, all of that is fact.
She kept saying that pretty much I was a pussy because I wouldn't fight her.
Did you know Talia was taken to the hospital? She died. She didn't survive her injuries.
I'm not going home.
No, you're going to jail.
She sits in the courtroom as if this space has been familiar to her for a long time. As if she has already walked these corridors more than once, heard the heavy doors close behind her, seen these benches, these dark wooden panels, grown used to the silence in which any sound, a cough, the rustle of paper, footsteps feels unnaturally loud. She does not shift in her seat. She does not change her posture. She does not search for a more comfortable position. Her back is straight, her shoulders lowered, relaxed rather than tense. Her hands rest calmly in front of her, without small nervous movements, without the instinctive need to clench her fingers or hide them beneath the bench. She does not cover her face with her hands. She does not lower her head. She does not stare at the floor. Her gaze is directed forward, but there is no attempt to catch someone's eye or look for reassurance. This is the gaze of someone who has already lived through this moment dozens of times in her own mind. Someone who has replayed the sequence of events again and again and convinced herself that she already knows how this is supposed to end. She looks as though the ending has been settled internally long before this day, and now the real courtroom is simply confirming a conclusion she accepted in advance. There is no panic on her face, no sharp, exposed fear, the kind that usually appears when a person truly understands, for the first time, that freedom might be taken away. Instead, there is a strange, barely noticeable confidence, a confidence that often comes not from trust in the justice system, but from an unshakable belief in one's own version of events. She has been told more than once that in cases like this, what matters is not only what happened, but how it is presented. She is young, she has no criminal record, she does not appear aggressive, she did not seek confrontation, she backed away. She was scared. These are the phrases the defense is preparing to place at the center of their story.
I know. Stay back, all right? Hey, you're gonna let them do their work, okay? Oh my God! Come on, guys, let's get back.
Hey, back up.
Come on, I understand. Let's get back.
Did anyone see what he got stabbed with? He's asking. What did he get stabbed with?
Yes.
You don't know? They don't know. Hey, man, just let him work.
Bro.
Yeah, see, just let him work, man. Just let him work.
That's what I'm saying, bro. That they were supposed to be fighting. I didn't see no knife get pulled or nothing. They say no, she bleeding on her neck, guys.
What's his name? You know his name? Halia Blue. Halia Blue.
That's all I know. Halia. Where's my little...
Did anyone see it? The girl did? She's the only one? She's our only witness? Okay.
Where y'all going? Where y'all going? Alright, I'm on my way. Let's go!
Where are they calling Riverside?
Girl traumas.
The victim's family is present in the courtroom. They sit separately, but they stay close to one another, as if physical proximity is the only thing keeping them upright. Each of them experiences the process differently. For some, it is a heavy, almost stone-like silence. For others, it is a constant inner tension that never loosens its grip. They are all looking in the same direction, but they are not seeing the same thing. One person is mentally returning to the face of the girl who is no longer here. Another is replaying the night that split their life into before and after. For them, this trial is not a formal legal procedure. It is not just a hearing, not just speeches and motions and protocol. It is a continuation of events that did not end when the ambulance sirens faded. For them, nothing truly ended that night. And the most painful part is not simply that the defendant is sitting in the courtroom. The most painful part is how she looks. Calm, composed, controlled. As if the full weight of the loss has still not fully reached her. Honestly, looking at her makes me sick. How can you sit there like a stone statue while 3 feet away a mother is weeping for the child you took? That is not being calm, that is being soulless. This is the image the defense builds upon. They speak evenly, without raising their voices, without emotional emphasis. There are no sharp gestures, no theatrical displays. Everything appears measured, calculated, deliberate. Their strategy is built on details meant to create a sense of logic and inevitability. She did not come there intending to fight. She did not plan a confrontation. She did not seek the encounter. She found herself in a situation that spiraled out of control. And most importantly, according to this narrative, she tried to leave. These phrases are repeated again and again, deliberately, as if they are being etched into the court's memory. The defense emphasizes them because they are meant to become the foundation for every conclusion that follows. In this version of events, she is not the instigator. She is someone who was in the wrong place at the wrong time and reacted the only way she could in a moment of fear. Guys, before we dive into the details, if you have a quick moment, honestly, drop your location and current time in the comments below, because seeing how far this family reaches across the globe is the highlight of my day. Look, here's the deal. I am trying to create the best documentaries on this platform, so if I earn it by the end, please subscribe, but if not, tell me why. Seriously, I take criticism well and want to improve. Sorry for taking your precious time. The prosecution does not interrupt. They do not rush to dismantle the defense's version in the opening moments. They listen. They allow the story to unfold fully, a continuous narrative of fear, confusion, and allegedly forced reaction. For them, it is important that the court hear this version, without interruption, without fragmentation. Only then, they believe, can its missing pieces be exposed. They are not interested in arguing every sentence individually. Their goal is not small contradictions, but a shift in perspective. Not to prove that every word is false, but to show that even within this version there are gaps that become clear when the events are viewed on a broader scale. For the prosecution, what happened in the final minutes of that night is not the only issue. Equally important is the path that led there. This conflict did not appear suddenly. It did not emerge out of nothing. It had a history long, complicated, emotionally charged. There was a bond between these two girls that eventually stopped being supportive and became a source of constant tension. They were once close enough to know each other's vulnerabilities. They shared personal stories, fears, private struggles, things people rarely expose to the outside world. According to the prosecution, that closeness later became dangerous. When the friendship ended, nothing disappeared. Everything remained resentment, unresolved conflict, unspoken accusations. And that unresolved weight made the eventual confrontation volatile. According to the defendant, it was after the friendship ended that fear began to take hold. She told investigators about harsh words, about threats, about behavior she perceived as unstable and unpredictable. Much of this is subjective. Much of it cannot be measured or verified definitively. But that is how internal convictions form. Fear is not always rooted in facts. Often it grows from interpretations, isolated moments, and emotional impressions that eventually fuse into a single narrative. Over time, an image formed in her mind, a person to avoid. That image began to shape every reaction she had. Even when an objective threat was not yet obvious, she interpreted events through the lens of accumulated fear. We have all had toxic friends or exes we could not stand, but we blocked them on social media. We did not prepare for war. Am I wrong? For the prosecution, this matters not as justification, but as context, an explanation of how emotional tension can gradually alter behavior.
The girl did. She's the only one. She's our only witness. Okay.
Where y'all going? Where y'all going? I'm on my way. Let's go.
Where are they called? Riverside?
Girl trauma.
14.
The prosecution does not deny that fear existed. They acknowledge that anxiety may have been real. What they focus on is its evolution. The case files include messages, conversations, and language that show a gradual shift in tone. Early on, there are complaints and emotional reactions. Later, the wording becomes harsher. Eventually, phrases appear that no longer reflect avoidance, but readiness for confrontation. For the court, these are not random words taken out of context. They are indicators of internal state. Fear that remains constant usually drives avoidance. But fear mixed with anger and tension can transform into willingness to act. The evening that would later become fatal began in an entirely ordinary way. She was with a friend. They were driving around the city without a specific purpose.
Yeah, it's good video. He's standing maybe 10 feet from him, recording full HD with his iPhone.
People do it. These cameras are insane.
Yeah.
We have that phone secured by chance.
Oh, yeah.
Airplane mode and all that good stuff.
No, not airplane.
I would put it on airplane mode just so I don't think it's going to happen because they're being cooperative, but that way there's no risk of somebody remote accessing it.
Flashlight.
Can you unlock that for me?
You mind if I watch it real quick, buddy? Does it show the car on there at all?
Actually, it might. Hold on, come here.
Just start it from me.
Am I allowed to come out?
Yeah, you're staying right there, bro.
Hey, get off my sister, bro.
Remember, hold it.
Yep, go ahead. Get off my sister.
Aaliyah's the one in the orange.
You don't have to put my phone down, bro. Aaliyah, country, get it over with, bro. Country, get it over with, Aaliyah.
Who's Aaliyah to you?
Aaliyah, my little, she's like my sister. I've known her,
Aaliyah, country, Aaliyah.
but you could tell she started bleeding before in the entire fight.
You better get your girl before she get f***ed up even more.
So it doesn't have.
Okay, so I saved it down there. You could tell that button down there saved. I might.
Here's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna put your phone on airplane mode, buddy.
Yes, sir. You do
And
what
then
you
I'm
need
gonna
to
sit
do.
right on the dash, like right where it was.
Yes, sir. You do what you need to do, man.
All right, thank you, boss.
Talking about small things, listening to music. One of those evenings that rarely stays in memory because nothing about it feels significant. She called her brother several times, not out of panic, not because she sensed immediate danger. It was habitual, a way to stay connected. At that moment, nothing suggested that within hours this evening would become evidence in a criminal case. Stopping at a familiar store did not seem risky. It was a place they had been to before, without incident, a routine stop along a familiar route. That ordinariness would later become one of the most painful contrasts in the case. What felt normal became the point of no return. She did not know that inside the store was the person tied to so much unresolved tension. The encounter was sudden. There was no time to prepare, no opportunity to plan a reaction. In a single moment, their eyes met, and it became clear that contact could not be avoided. The reaction was immediate. Words were exchanged sharply, without pause, without any attempt to soften the tone. One sentence struck an old wound, a subject that had never healed. It was not an accidental remark. It landed like a deliberate strike at a vulnerable place. For one side, it was an insult. For the other, humiliation that demanded a response. In that second, the conflict stopped being theoretical. It became real. Store employees reacted quickly. They saw the tension rising and understood that the situation could spiral. Their goal was simple: prevent a physical confrontation inside the store. They intervened, separated the parties, and escorted them outside, hoping that would be the end of it. Inside, the tension appeared to dissolve. In reality, it had only shifted location. Outside, the space changed everything. No walls to contain sound, no aisles limiting movement, no immediate authority. The air was colder, movements sharper, voices louder. Here, the conflict lost its boundaries. What moments earlier was a verbal exchange now hung in a charged pause. No one left immediately. No one declared it over. Both sides remained within sight of each other. In that pause, several dozen seconds, perhaps a minute, almost everything that followed was already set in motion. This was the moment when de-escalation was still possible. But it required a clear decision: get into the car, drive away, disappear. Neither side made that choice. Sorry, but this is the moment I lose sympathy. You have a car. You have the keys. Just step on the gas and go home. Why is ego always more important than life? For investigators, this hesitation becomes crucial. The conflict did not explode in a single second. It unfolded gradually. Not a reflexive act, but a chain of moments made possible by the absence of a final step back. She held drinks in her hands, trying to appear detached. According to her, she did not expect the conflict to continue. She believed it was over. Yet she did not take the step that would have ended it completely. She did not leave, she did not drive away. For the prosecution, this matters. Paralyzing fear looks different. It forces escape. Here, fear coexisted with tension that kept her engaged.
Aaliyah used to be a really good friend of mine, and then I found out a lot that she's just a really bad person, so I stopped being friends with her and my friend stopped talking to her. And then after that, she pretty much just went crazy, like saying she was gonna kill us and slash his tires and do all these things, and like she does to most people.
Strangers nearby did not perceive the situation as extraordinary. To them, it looked like another teenage argument, loud, emotional, familiar. Some took out their phones, some commented, some encouraged, without realizing how their words fueled escalation. That background, laughter, shouts, voices, later became evidence, an example of how collective indifference can minimize real danger. In that moment, no one believed a life was at risk.
My mom.
Alright. Let's go ahead and have a seat right here.
My sister.
This your sister that got cut?
No, she's not blood related, but I've known her since she was 12.
Okay, so a good friend of yours?
Yeah,
right.
Man.
So what, did you see what happened? You
Man, I got that on video, man. I don't even know where the fuck she got stabbed at, bro.
Calm down, bro.
It was beef in the side square.
Get it over with, bro. Country, get it over with, Aaliyah. Yeah, country, Aaliyah. Country, Aaliyah. Country, Aaliyah.
She got stabbed right there. Saw all the blood come out, bro.
The girl in the orange is the one
The
that got cut?
girl in the orange is the one who got cut. Take that phone away from me,
all right.
bro.
Yeah, here, let me have your phone. All right, here, I gotta have you sit right here, man. Hey. I need you to just hang out in here, okay?
See their faces on video. If I would have known my sister was gonna get stabbed between a fight, like I know it's bad to say, I know,
So Bree was fighting with.
Bree and Aaliyah were supposed to be fighting while they were in the Columbus
Was this
Square.
like a planned thing or what?
No, it was random as she came in while we came in. Like it was random as
In the smoke shop?
Yeah, in the smoke shop right there.
Okay.
It just
And
happened to come in, and they started going at it in the store. And Bree called Aaliyah a cokehead.
Okay.
Aaliyah's a sober, like she's a recovering addict. So she took that into great offense. You know, I don't know if you've met any recovering addicts, but like me personally, I'm one.
Who was an addict? I'm sorry.
Aaliyah. Aaliyah was an
okay.
addict. So and she called Aaliyah out on being
a cokehead.
Yeah. So like Aaliyah got mad and Aaliyah was waiting outside and they were supposed to just fight. It was supposed to just be a fight. I was there. I was supposed to be like in between it. I didn't even see a knife get pulled. Okay. Like I'm not sure if it was a knife or if she had a ring on her finger and just got her. Like you know what I'm saying? Like. Because the knife got pulled out and it was on the ground and I saw it.
What kind of knife was it?
It looked like a switchblade, like a butterfly knife type of knife. But I'm not entirely sure.
Okay.
Like, I'm going to be honest with you. But she didn't have time to pull it out because Aaliyah, like, I'm not going to lie, that's my little sister, but she smacked the out of her first. Like, you can see it on the video.
Right.
Aaliyah smacked her. All you saw from that was hands on hands. There was no, like, digging into pockets and pulling out and going like, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
There was none of that, because if I would have seen that, I would have already been in there and y'all would have been called sooner. We didn't know she was bleeding out till she got it back. She crunched Bree in the face. Bree was on the ground and she walked away. Aaliyah walked away, got in the Jeep ready to drive.
Right.
And she was sitting there and comes over to me and goes, she's spitting blood out of her chest. And I come over and I just see right in this area on the right or left side of her chest, shooting blood. My first reaction is take my shirt off, put it on top, put pressure on it.
Okay.
I've had my brothers die in my arms because they got shot and I didn't put pressure on it. You know what I'm saying? Like I didn't put pressure fast enough. So like
that's rough.
When the tension turned into movement, events began to unfold much faster. She was retreating, this is acknowledged by both the defense and the prosecution. step by step backward, increasing the distance. She repeated that she did not want to fight, that she was trying to leave. These details are important to the court because they form the initial picture of the dynamics of events. At this stage, the initiative for physical contact did not come from her. But at the same time, retreating did not mean completely withdrawing from the conflict. She remained within the situation, without breaking contact completely. It is this fine line between retreat and continuation that will later become the subject of the most heated disputes between the parties. The people around continued to watch. For most of them, it did not seem like a situation that required immediate intervention. They saw a loud, emotional confrontation, but that was precisely the problem. Such scenes seemed familiar. Teenage conflicts, shouting, insults, sudden movements. All this was perceived as something mundane, almost background noise. That is why no one was in a hurry to stop the events once and for all. Someone took out their phone and filmed it. Someone commented aloud, as if it were part of the show. Some incited the crowd, shouting phrases that did not contribute to de-escalation. In this mix of voices and reactions, the sense of real danger disappeared. When there are many people around, each of them subconsciously shifts responsibility to others. As a result, no one intervenes. You know what pisses me off the most? Not the fight. It is the people watching. Everyone pulls out a phone to get content, but nobody has the guts to stop it. Are we really this broken as a society? This moment would later become one of the most important for analysis, not because of individual words or actions, but because of the overall context. The situation, which from the outside might have looked like a normal argument, was in fact moving toward a critical point. But precisely because of its outward normality, it did not cause alarm.
Country, get it over with, bro. Country, get it over with, Aaliyah. Yeah, country ass, Aaliyah. Country ass, Aaliyah. Country ass, Aaliyah. Country ass, Aaliyah. Girl. You better get your girl before she get up even more.
For the court, the critical moment arrives when an object capable of causing fatal harm appears in the conflict. This is where the positions of the two sides diverge most sharply. The defense insists that she took it out only at the moment she realized the situation was fully slipping out of control. In their logic, this was the extreme point of fear, an attempt to stop what was happening when, in her mind, every other option had already failed. The prosecution frames this moment differently. From their perspective, the appearance of such an object fundamentally changes the nature of the conflict itself. Up to that point, no matter how heated the exchange had been, it remained within the bounds of verbal confrontation and physical aggression without lethal means. From the second that object enters the equation, every movement carries potentially fatal consequences. This shift in scale is what the prosecution considers decisive. I am sorry, but who brings a lethal weapon to a teenage argument that is not self-defense? If you put that in your pocket before leaving the house, you are already planning to use it. In those seconds, fear and adrenaline intertwine. According to the defendant, she was not thinking about consequences. She did not imagine that things could end the way they did. Her stated goal was to stop the confrontation, to scare, to force the other person to back away. But in court, intent does not exist in isolation. It is always evaluated alongside outcome. And this is where the central tragedy of the case emerges. The gap between what a person believes they are doing and what actually happens. Between the internal conviction that control is still possible and the reality in which control has already been lost. Honestly, I hate this excuse. I did not mean for it to happen. You are swinging something sharp at a human being. What did you expect? A scratch? It is a lie they start believing themselves. When tension turns into motion, events unfold far faster than before. What moments earlier still seemed like a conflict with a possible exit now loses that option entirely. Movements become sharper. Distance closes. Everything happens within a few seconds, without time for calculation or reflection.
We didn't know she was bleeding out. She crunched Bree in the face. Bree was on the ground and she walked away. Aaliyah walked away, got in the Jeep ready to drive.
Right.
And she was sitting there and comes over to me and goes, she's spitting blood out of her chest. And I come over and I just see right in this area, left side of her chest, shooting blood. My first reaction is take my shirt off, put it on top, put pressure on it. I've had my brothers die in my arms because they got shot, and you know what I'm saying? I didn't put pressure fast enough. So
that's rough. That's rough, brother. That's rough.
Man, just please save my sister, bro.
After the fatal movement, there is no immediate realization of what has happened. For several seconds, the scene still looks as though the conflict has simply ended. Both sides are still moving, still speaking, still operating on emotional momentum. There is no sudden pause, no immediate scream that signals irreversible damage. This delay between action and awareness later becomes one of the most painful elements of the case. Only gradually do signs appear that something far more serious than another fight has occurred. Movement slow, reactions become chaotic. People nearby do not immediately understand what to do. Someone shouts, without even knowing who they are shouting at. Someone rushes forward, trying to help without knowing how. Someone else steps back, sensing that the situation has crossed a line. Just imagine that cold feeling. 1 second you are screaming at each other, and the next, silence. And you realize you can never fix this. It sends chills down my spine. For the victim's family, these minutes later become some of the most agonizing. It is in this brief window that hope still flickered that things could be fixed, that this was not the end, that help would arrive in time. That hope was short-lived, but its presence makes the loss even more devastating.
Just so that you know, Talia was taken to the hospital and she died. She didn't survive her injuries. So with all the people that we interviewed and the video that we recovered, we're charging you with murder.
No sort of self-defense or anything?
Essentially, it'll be up to the prosecutor's office. We'll present the case to them, and then if they decided that they want us to present to the grand jury, we'll present to the grand jury. If you get indicted for it, then it'll go to trial, it'll go to court, and then you'll be able to present a self-defense claim at that point.
I'm not going home?
No, you're going to jail, because we're charging you with the murder.
When emergency services arrive, the atmosphere shifts entirely. This is no longer a conflict between teenagers, no longer an emotional confrontation. It becomes a race against time. Commands are issued clearly, without emotion. Movements are practiced fast, mechanical. Everything is directed toward a single goal, stabilization and buying minutes. For bystanders, the transition is abrupt and jarring. What only moments earlier looked like a familiar argument now reveals itself as a life-threatening emergency. The realization comes too late. No one was prepared for this outcome. At this point, the defendant is no longer at the center of events. Physically, she is moved aside. Emotionally, she seems detached from what is happening. She does not run. She does not scream. She does not try to draw attention to herself. She appears disoriented, as though she cannot yet fully process what has occurred. For the defense, this later becomes an argument against premeditation. For the prosecution, it is evidence of shock, a state that does not eliminate responsibility. The arrest happens without resistance. She follows instructions. She responds briefly, without emotional outbursts. Her movements are slow, distant. She is taken to the station, where an entirely different part of the story begins. Formal, cold, procedural. Inside the station, time moves differently. There is no crowd noise, no outside voices. Only walls, light, and waiting. She sits alone, without her phone, without contact with the outside world. Each minute feels longer than the last. It is here that the realization begins to form slowly that the consequences of this night may be far more severe than she imagined in the immediate aftermath.
For me, please. So I have in the computer a 3-page entry of guilty plea form. The document looks like you signed it and your lawyer signed it. Did you sign it?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. In signing it, you're telling me you want to admit to a felony 3 crime called involuntary manslaughter. When you plead guilty, it is a complete admission. You're going to be convicted today and you're going to be sentenced on July the 11th. It'll be on your record. It's a non-expungible offense. It carries up to 3 years in prison and a fine of up to $10,000. Do you understand the nature of the charge to which you're pleading guilty and what the maximum penalties are?
Yes, Your Honor.
The notification of death becomes the moment after which the night can no longer be framed as a conflict. It is the point at which all previous explanations lose their meaning. What might have sounded like justification hours earlier no longer holds. The words, "I did not mean to," lose their weight. She listens without interrupting, without arguing. Her reaction is restrained, distant. You are told a person is dead because of you, and you sit there acting restrained? I do not know about you guys, but if that was me, I would be banging my head against the wall in horror. What is wrong with her? At this point, even the defense can no longer describe the situation as an incident without fatal consequences. From here on, the case moves into an entirely different legal reality. After the confirmation of death, any remaining trace of adolescent conditionality disappears. What once looked like a confrontation between two girls now exists solely as a criminal case. Investigators stop working with emotions and begin working with facts. Every movement, every pause, every decision is broken down into a sequence that must be documented, verified, and explained. She spends hours at the station before fully grasping the scope of what unfolded after her detention. Time here has no familiar rhythm. There are no distractions, no markers of normal life. Just walls, artificial light, and waiting. In this environment, a new understanding forms, not emotional, but cold, detached. She begins to realize that her words and actions no longer belong only to her. They are now part of an official record. Witnesses are interviewed one by one. Some speak confidently, reconstructing events as a clear sequence. Others hesitate, change phrasing, return repeatedly to the same moments. For some, the night remains fragmented. For others, it is a series of sharp, vivid images. These accounts are compared, layered, aligned, forming a picture with less room for assumptions and more for verifiable detail.
Engaged. She slaps Bryanna Barozzini in the face. Your Honor, all of that is fact. It is reasonable that those actions would anger Bryanna Barozzini. However, none of those actions justify Bryanna Barozzini taking a knife and plunging it into Halia's clavicle. Rather, that is an act of unjustifiable rage, as stabbing is a disproportionate response to a slap. Your Honor, today this court has the responsibility of deciding the appropriate sentence for Ms. Barozzini.
Video recordings, messages, calls, timelines, all of it becomes the foundation of the investigation. The prosecution does not limit itself to analyzing the moment of the conflict alone. They focus on what followed, how the defendant behaved, what she said, what decisions she made in the first hours. For them, these actions matter as much as the fatal moment itself, because they speak to awareness and accountability. The months between the incident and the trial pass slowly. For the victim's family, this period is one of continuous pain. Every day is a reminder of loss. They live in a state of waiting, unable to find closure or move forward. Each new court date, each update from the investigation reopens the wound. They are not seeking revenge. They are seeking an answer even knowing that a complete answer may never exist. For the defendant, this time becomes life in suspension. Formally, she has not yet been convicted. In reality, she is no longer free. Every day is filled with uncertainty. Every conversation with her attorneys is a reminder that the future is no longer hers to shape. The defense returns again and again to the same core arguments: fear, retreat, lack of intent. These words slowly take on procedural weight. At the same time, the prosecution constructs a different narrative. They work not with isolated moments, but with context. Their goal is to show that the conflict was not accidental, that it developed gradually, fed by words, resentment, internal beliefs. That is why they analyze the period leading up to that night so carefully, reconstructing the psychological environment in which the events unfolded. When the case reaches the courtroom phase, the perception of time changes. Events that lasted minutes or hours are now examined over weeks. Every detail carries weight. Every phrase can shift emphasis. The courtroom becomes a space where human tragedy is translated into the language of law, precise, restrained, stripped of emotion.
Ms. Culbertson's had the opportunity and took that opportunity to video Ms. Culbertson as Ms. Culbertson was waiting for Bryanna to come out of the store. There's a significant period of time when Ms. Culbertson is waiting. Ms. Bryanna comes out with drinks in her hand. There is a glass door, but there's posters or pictures or whatever covering that. I think it disputes the fact that this was a neutral combat. Let's get into a fist fight, and then fist fight got out of hand. And at that time, Bryanna had pulled a knife. In watching and reviewing the video that was played about the actual event a little while ago, and I mentioned in the sentencing memorandum, I counted no less than 30 steps that my client took backwards. She pulled a knife from her pocket and took 15 more steps backwards away from Ms. Culberson. She didn't want to engage at all. This was more an assault than a mutual fistfight. And at the time, as Mr. Barrett said, she's afraid. She was in fear, and she was. When her friend tried to jump in and help, Mr. Barrett threatened him.
The judge's decision to admit certain materials into evidence becomes a turning point. It is the line after which the defense is forced to reconsider its calculations. The risks rise sharply. What could once be framed as isolated moments now threatens to form a cohesive narrative unfavorable to the defendant. The atmosphere in the courtroom changes. Confidence gives way to tension. It is at this stage that discussions of a possible plea begin. This is not an act of remorse, nor an attempt to escape responsibility. It is a pragmatic decision dictated by courtroom reality. The defense weighs the risks of a significantly harsher sentence. The prosecution evaluates whether a guaranteed outcome outweighs the uncertainty of trial. The agreement does not appear suddenly. It takes shape gradually, through closed discussions where every word has procedural significance. The defense understands that continuing with the admitted evidence could dramatically alter how jurors perceive the case. The prosecution recognizes that even a strong case carries risk. At this point, both sides reach a decision that formally appears as compromise, but in reality reflects calculated necessity.
I once thought I would be here today with these charges. I also have never been one to start a fight. I'm always a person to back away from confrontation. Not a day goes by that this incident hasn't been on my mind. I understand and feel for the victim's family, as I know the harm I have caused them is indescribable. I also feel for my own family, as the situation has caused them a lot of pain. I can understand and appreciate the harm that I have caused now. I will be living with this guilt the rest of my life. I took a life, and I understand the victim's family will suffer for the rest of their lives.
When the courtroom hears the decision to plead guilty to a lesser charge, the atmosphere shifts instantly. This is not the climax many anticipated. There is no jury verdict, no dramatic rupture. Instead, there is the quiet understanding that the process has entered its final phase without spectacle. For the defendant, it marks the end of uncertainty. No more scenarios to replay. No more what if. There is now a concrete legal outcome that will define the coming years. For her family, it brings a relief that is difficult to voice, not because the outcome is good, but because the waiting has finally stopped. For the victim's family, the moment feels entirely different. It does not provide answers. It does not resolve the central questions. The sense of incompleteness sharpens. The process moves toward closure, but emotionally, nothing is finished. The defendant's words are careful, restrained. She speaks of regret, of not understanding where her actions would lead. She does not argue. She does not justify herself. But the words do not change the underlying feeling. For the victim's family, they are not reconciliation. They are procedure. Sentencing day unfolds in tense, almost sterile silence. The judge speaks at length, explaining the reasoning behind the decision. His language is precise, deliberate. He lists mitigating factors: age, lack of prior offenses, the context of the conflict, but he draws a clear boundary. None of these negate the fact that a life was lost. His tone is not cold from indifference, but from obligation. The court cannot afford emotion. Court cannot afford emotion. Easy to say when it is not your child lying in the ground. Sometimes the law feels so cold, it makes you want to scream. Is this really justice?
Give you a 3-year prison sentence, 3 days jail credit. You are going to have the ability for early release, and I will consider that at the appropriate time.
When the sentence is announced, reactions vary. Some freeze, trying to imprint the moment into memory. Some lower their heads. Some clench their hands, unable to speak. The defendant stands still. She listens without interruption, without outward reaction. Her face no longer carries confidence. There is no fear, no relief. Only emptiness, the kind that appears when the future stops being abstract and becomes defined. After the trial concludes, the case does not disappear from public discourse. It lives on in debates, comments, arguments. People who were not there that night form opinions from fragments of information. For some, it becomes a story of a system that is too lenient. For others, a warning about how fear and impulsivity can destroy multiple lives at once. The victim's family remains with a sense of incompletion. Formally, everything is over, the sentence has been issued, terms defined. But no ruling answers the question that follows them every day: why this was allowed to happen. They return again and again to that night. The words, the pause outside, the seconds when walking away was still possible. These thoughts do not change the past, but they become part of life after loss. For the defendant, consequences extend beyond the sentence. The verdict is only the legal conclusion. The real consequences will unfold over years. She cannot return to a life where that night was just an episode. Every new beginning will carry the knowledge that the past remains documented, remembered, recognized. In a broader context, this case illustrates how thin the line is between a routine conflict and criminal tragedy. It did not begin with intent to kill. It began with words, accumulated resentment, and the failure or inability to step away in time. That is what makes it so difficult to judge in simple terms. There are no easy answers. Only a chain of decisions, each of which might have seemed insignificant alone, but together led to an irreversible outcome. When the courtroom empties, life does not return to normal for those involved. Formally, the case is closed. Psychologically, it continues. The benches are empty. Attorneys move on to other files. But for those personally affected, this story does not become finished. The victim's family enters a reality without court dates or hearings. No expectation that the next stage will bring relief. Only silence, the kind that follows a loud process. In that silence, grief changes shape. Less sharp, more constant, present every day. What weighs heavily is not only the loss itself, but the realization that life around them continues. People work, plan, laugh, as if nothing happened. That creates isolation, a sense that the tragedy exists only within one family. It is often at this stage that perceptions of justice shift from a legal concept to a human expectation that cannot always be fulfilled. The defendant also enters a new phase of reality. The sentence marks the beginning of a long process of adaptation. The future no longer feels open. It is divided into permitted and forbidden, into what remains possible and what is lost forever. Public interest fades. Headlines change. New stories replace old ones. But digital traces remain: videos, comments, discussions that can resurface at any moment. For those involved, that means the past is never fully gone. Lawyers, psychologists, and sociologists analyze the case. They discuss the boundaries of self-defense, the role of accumulated fear, the influence of environment. But for the victim's family, this is not a case study. It is a life without closure. In the end, this story does not deliver justice in the classical sense. It leaves behind a heavy understanding of how fragile ordinary life can be, and how quickly a handful of emotionally charged decisions can destroy everything. That is what makes it instructive, not as an exception, but as a warning. This story shows us that the scariest thing isn't always the weapon itself, but the terrifying power of unchecked ego. The line between a teenage drama and a life sentence is razor thin, and it disappears the moment we decide that winning an argument matters more than survival. Now, tell us honestly, if you had the car keys in your hand and a clear path to leave, would you have driven away? Or would your pride have kept you there until it was too late? Who is truly worse in this story? The girl who struck the fatal blow, or the crowd that stood by filming for content instead of stopping it? And be real with us. Is bringing a lethal weapon to a teenage argument ever really self-defense? Or is it a plan to hurt someone? Do you have similar stories? Share them in the comments. Let's talk about this together. If this story touched you, subscribe so you don't miss the next case, which will shock you even more. May Halia Culbertson rest in peace. The book of Proverbs says, "Pride goes before destruction, and a haughty spirit before a fall," and this story proves it. Take this as a warning. Always choose to walk away, because a moment of bruised ego is better than a lifetime of regret behind bars. Now look at the screen. You see the next videos we prepared for you? They explore even darker corners of human nature. So we don't say goodbye. May God bless you, and see you there.